everyone. I'm Tina with Nurse Leadership Solutions, and this is The Joy Within the Journey. And I have a special guest here today, Kim Marler. Thank you for joining me. And tell me who these lovely people are sitting on this table here.
Those are my parents. That is my dad. Everybody called him Dace by his last name. It's Benton Dace. This is my mom. She had a nickname too. It was Tiny.
Why'd they call her Tiny?
She was 4 pounds when she was born, and her real name is Myra. And when she was born, she had an older brother that was like 18 months older, and he couldn't say that. So my grandma would say, "Look at the tiny baby. That's our tiny baby." And so it just stuck. Tiny stuck. And that was all anybody really knew her.
I really thought because there's a certain trend that goes through the entire family.
And that she was tiny.
It so happens to be, are any of you 5 foot tall? No, I'm just kidding.
I am.
Well, that's good. I'm just totally kidding.
Mom wasn't.
Your mom wasn't?
Mm-mm.
No?
No. Mom was 4'11", and Dad was 5 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the kids were taller than them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so tell me a little bit about you growing up, what your life was like growing up.
Well, I'm one of 6 children. I'm the second youngest.
Your parents were busy.
Yeah. Very busy. 6 kids in 8.5 years.
Wow.
So when my oldest brother was 8.5, my youngest brother was born. On the second child, Mom got a full-time job at Southwestern Bell. So she worked like my whole life, So we lived in St. Clair, then we moved to Union because Mom got transferred from the St. Clair facility to the Union, and Union was like 3 times as big. And then we lived there for a couple years, and actually Mom and Dad had another baby after we moved there, but he passed away when he was 4 days old. So there was 7 of us. But,
really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And,
I just can't even imagine that as a mother.
I remember I was 4 when my baby brother was born, and I remember them bringing Mom's bed downstairs to the dining room because she was really sick after she had the baby. And my aunt was a nurse, and she would sit me up on the bed, and like Mom's head was here, but my feet was going that way. And my younger brother, Marty, she set him on the other side, and Mom would just pat her legs. And I remember her eyes being closed and her just patting her legs. She would like say, "My babies." And it was a grieving thing she was, going through. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine. So.
Yeah. So anyway, we lived there for a couple years. And then Mom was very career oriented. She got transferred to Kirkwood, to the Southwestern Bell in Kirkwood. That was way before AT&T. It was Southwestern Bell. And so at that time, Dad he was a taxi driver. He worked at gas stations. So Mom got transferred, so we moved up there. And
so you're telling me that your mom was a career person and that you moved around based on her position?
She made more money than Dad.
Wow.
So,
and what
she
year,
carried the insurance.
About what year was this? Because
63.
That's very unusual.
63, probably.
Yeah.
1963.
Wow. Yeah. All new respect for Tiny.
And so that's when Dad applied for the carpet layers union, and he went into flooring. And for many years after that, because at that time, when Thanksgiving would hit, they would be laid off like through the spring. No new construction or nobody did anything. It's a lot different now.
Yeah.
But Mom still made more money than Dad for many years.
Even when he was in the carpenter union.
So we lived there for 5 years. I went in kindergarten and we moved back to St. Clair the summer before I went into 6th grade.
So and most of your grade school.
Yes. We wanted to get back to family. Mom and Dad did, because all of our relation was out here. We we would come up probably every 2 to 3 weeks and stay with grandma. Well, grandma had a little house and all 6 of us kids would be there. We'd sleep everywhere. I mean, it was like wall-to-wall kids.
Isn't that interesting to see the smaller houses that families of 6, 8, 10 kids lived in?
Yes.
And all shared bedrooms, different
We just made pallets.
genders,
Yeah.
different ages, everyone.
It's
And,
different.
now everyone wants their own bedroom.
Oh, yes.
And it's kind of interesting dynamics. We're getting ready to go on vacation with our family, and, everyone wants their own bedroom. And I'm like, look, if we're going on vacation, you might just be sleeping on the floor somewhere.
Yes.
But this, that is very unusual these days.
Yes. Like what in our family dynamic, there was 4 boys and 2 girls, and me and my sister are 6 years apart. And we always shared a bedroom together. Not only a bedroom, we shared a bed. And there was many times she would be mad at me and kick me out of the bed and I'd sleep on the floor. But then the 2 younger brothers shared a room together and the 2 older brothers shared a room together.
Yeah. I shared a room with my sister. We were about 8 years apart. That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
My sister hated it.
Yeah, I hated it too.
I didn't mind.
I hated it.
I didn't mind, but she hated it.
Yeah. You were the younger? Yeah.
Yeah.
I hated it, and my sister didn't mind either.
Yeah. So then when Mom moved back here, when we all moved back to St. Clair, she worked for a couple more years at the phone company, and then she took an early retirement. It was I think looking back, it was very stressful, and we all had to participate. My dad was way before his time. He had to help, get supper together because Mom would work some days, some nights, some third shift. So Dad would cook supper. Dad was a better cook than Mom, actually. He took care of us.
Did your mom know that he was a better cook?
She must have, because she let him cook a lot.
I always say I can't cook, but
You
it's
can.
really because I don't want to.
Yeah. Mom was a good baker and she loved to bake and loved to make candy and stuff like that. But Dad was a pretty good cook.
Did you ever make divinity?
Always.
What is it called?
Divinity.
Divinity. That was my divinity. That was my grandma's favorite, and I have not seen it or heard of it probably since she passed.
Yes.
It's funny. I don't even know if does anybody make that anymore.
Somewhere.
If anybody has a good
divinity
recipe, send it to me, because I don't even know what it is.
Somewhere in all my mom's collections of cookbooks, I have a recipe.
Really?
Yeah.
So, teenage years in, they've got all these kids in the house.
Yes. All these kids in the house. And it was, it was fun. They were very hands-on. Mom and Dad were very hands-on. Mom didn't work. Like, once I became a teenager, Mom and Dad decided that she wasn't going to work after she quit the phone company. But then once I graduated, Mom started getting jobs again. And then they came up with wild hair somewhere to open a carpet store.
Yeah.
Mom ran the day-to-day operations. Dad always said Mom was the boss and he was the back. So Dad would go and measure for flooring, and he would bring the measurements back, and Mom would run up the bills, see how much they would owe, see how much carpet they had to order. And so Mom ran the office. And they had it for a long time. So at the end of the time that they're getting in their late 60s by this time, we've noticed that Mom's memory was slipping. Like, she would tell me something 15 times and think she's told everybody in the family. And I remember one year for Thanksgiving when we knew something was up. One year for Thanksgiving, we was going to have it at Mom and Dad's house. They had just built a new house. So Mom was really excited to have everybody there. Dad called me and said, I have the turkey in, but I can't keep your mom focused to make the meal. Can you come help me? Well, it just so happened that even though we were celebrating Thanksgiving with family, that on Saturdays, I would always make a turkey meal for my husband and my children. So I had the stuff at home, and I went and decided what we needed. Mom had 2 potatoes, and, when you have 6 children and they have children and spouses, you're talking
That's a big meal.
35 people to
Right.
40. She had 2 potatoes, and so I called my husband, I'm like, "Bring the potatoes." And I gave him a list of stuff to do. I just remember the potatoes, but I know there was a list, and, 'cause I remember him bringing a grocery bag. But she had told me all week that my oldest brother, Danny, was bringing potatoes, new potatoes and green beans. Well, I get to her house, and she has a huge crock pot of green beans and potatoes. I thought maybe Danny dropped them off before he went somewhere. Well, when Danny got there, he brought in a crock pot full of green beans and new potatoes. And I said, "Mom, why did you make these green beans? You have told me all week that Danny was bringing them." She goes, "Well, I didn't know." I said, "But you've told me all week. I have 6 kids. You think I'm going to remember everything?" That's what she always used as an excuse. I've raised 6 kids. So, and we fell for it for many years. We fell for that. So then later in the day, we was going to eat pumpkin pie. And Dad said Mom had baked the pies. They're out in the garage, cool, because it was cold in the garage. They're out in the garage. And I'm like, okay. I went to get them, and they were runny. I mean, you pick a spoon up and it just like liquid. And I know what happened after the fact is when the timer went off, she was supposed to switch racks, and she just took them out. And that wasn't Mom. Mom was always so sharp. And
So would you say this was one of the first times that the entire family recognized that there was a concern?
Yes, we knew that she repeated stuff a lot and forgot little things, but nothing like this. Well, with Dad being with her every day, it was just normal for Dad. And I said something that week after Thanksgiving to Mom and Dad. And I'm like, "Mom, you need to go to the doctor because I think you're having memory problems." She got so mad at me, so mad. She wouldn't talk to me. And I was the kind of child that I talked to my parents at least every other day, if not every day. And,
You shouldn't say that on the radio because my parents will hear that and then I'll be in trouble.
well, that's just how I was. But I talk to my children almost every day. So that's just me.
Understandable.
When I would call, she would either not answer the phone or make Dad answer the phone or give the phone right to Dad. And I would talk to Dad a little bit, and I'm like, "Give the phone to Mom." And I would force her to talk to me. She didn't talk to me for like a week and a half. She was really mad at me.
What did she say? Did she ever say what she was mad about? If she was mad because you noticed, if she mad because she didn't realize that there was a concern? Do you remember?
She was mad because I said she's having memory issues and she needed to go to the doctor.
Because you called it out.
Yes. And, probably looking back, she realized something wasn't right, but
didn't want to admit it.
Yeah. Well, then it took us a year and a half to convince Dad something wasn't right because Dad was the kind of husband that he didn't go against Mom. And
I would understand why.
Yeah, she was a force. Yeah.
She was.
Yeah. So then it took us a year and a half. We took her to the doctor. Year and a half later, so it's gotten worse. And she beat the Alzheimer's test. So then it got worse.
I wonder what the Alzheimer's test looked like. What year was this?
It was
we've just
mid-90s,
come so far.
late 90s.
Yeah, we've come so far with it.
It's how many kids you have. What's your husband's name? I was in there with them.
Right.
She passed it.
Yeah.
She knew that stuff.
But the funny thing of it is you can ask those kinds of questions. And I think we've gotten smarter now because you can ask those kinds of questions and they might think, yeah, it should have said, how old are your kids? How old is your husband? How many years you've been married?
And that's what they should have done, because
and
she wouldn't have done
that would have backed up her a
Mhm.
little bit, because of
Mhm.
course, if you've got grown children, I've had 6 kids for a long time. I've been saying their names since they were born, so of course I know I have 6 kids, but I might be thinking I'm still 30 though.
Exactly
So,
right. I think if they would have asked those questions,
mhm,
it would have had a different outcome. Well, then she progressively got worse. So about 6 months later, we took her to the doctor. She didn't pass that time. She would look at Dad for the answers, and the doctor finally said, "No, Mr. Dace isn't answering for you. I want you to tell me." And she couldn't do it. And then they gave her some medication, and I don't remember the medication. It was to slow down the memory loss,
mhm.
but it had Alzheimer's on it, and she wouldn't take it. So thank God we live in a small town. So I took it to the pharmacy, and I'm like, "Can you put something besides this word on it? Because she's not taking it." So they put for memory, and she was fine with that, because she knew that her memory was a little bad.
Mhm.
But the medication, it might have done something. We didn't notice that it did.
Right.
But different events happened in her life that would just make it go rapid. Like she got bacteria pneumonia and had to be in the hospital. And that illness was really bad. It just, when she came out, it took a downhill spiral. And then her brother got sick and he passed away, and that affected her.
Mhm.
So we're going on now 2007 probably. And mom and dad's still home. She's staying up all night. She's walking the floor all night. She had sundowners. At this time, my husband got diagnosed with cancer. So that pretty much put me out of the equation of taking care of mom and dad, and not taking care of them, but checking on them a lot. I had a career that I was working also. And when my husband got sick, mom and dad was at the hospital when he would be in the hospital every single day.
Mhm.
They'd leave for a while and then they'd come back, because she'd get real antsy. Like she just had to move and move and move. And when he passed away, it was another major decline for her. They really cared for him, and they loved him, and they known him forever. And it was a huge decline for her. And then at that time, I still had a 9-year-old at home when my husband passed away. So I would be very involved with them, like making sure, they would take their medicine and just checking in on them. But Gavin was very involved in sports. So, as a family, we all had to come together. Like my oldest brother would come out there, and my third to the oldest brother would come out. My sister was very involved, and we all had to help dad, because it was taxing on my dad.
So let's talk about that a little bit with your family. So, you had 6 kids, and, everyone was how'd you guys work together during that time period? You kind of took turns there, but
We did. We kind of got a schedule going.
mhm.
We would do it through text or three-way calls. And the three-way calls would usually be me, my sister, and my oldest brother, and then we would just tell the other two brothers what they were going to do. Okay.
Mhm.
And we would plug them in when we needed them. Mom was she would get out of the house. So we would go to these support groups. My oldest brother would go a lot, and they would give them ideas. So at first they said, put an alarm on the door, and the alarm would scare them and they'd back off. Not mom. She went right through it, didn't even phase her. And then the tone, this is funny. You got to find funny
You gotta
things.
find laughter in us,
The
yes.
tone would be a tone that dad didn't even hear it.
That high pitched,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so she would get out at night, and neighbors would bring her home. Thank God that she had good neighbors and they knew all their
Mhm.
neighbors. Dad didn't even know she was gone, and then we wouldn't hear from dad about it. We'd hear from the
From the
neighbors
neighbors.
about it, because dad was wanting to cover himself up too. So then, and we put locks on the doors. We put one low, one high. She figured them out.
Yeah.
And she was an escape artist.
She was a determined woman.
Very determined. Well, then she got to where just not sleeping at night. And, Dad had a triple bypass 20 years before or something. And that was really taxing on his heart. I was so afraid he'd have another heart attack. And because when you go without sleep, it's not good for any part of your body.
Right. And when you have someone with memory care, there's really not this moment of downtime.
No.
It is.
No.
You're going.
It's like her brain never shut off.
My grandmother was the same way. It's like she had way more energy with dementia than she ever had before in the years prior to that.
Yes.
So.
And mom was always busy and didn't get anything accomplished. And so
how did your dad deal with that? Did he just take it in? Didn't like to reach out for help?
He would only talk about it if we would drag it out of him, and so we knew things were getting bad. We just didn't realize how bad. And he is never one to complain. Dad never complained.
I could see that.
And, but then she started getting incognate, and it was a game changer for Dad. And one day he's like, we got to do something. But in the meantime, before we decided, we knew that day was going to come. So we started looking at different facilities.
Being close is important. So all the family can visit, because I think that is what makes it successful for everyone.
And we looked at several. 2 of them were not equipped for Alzheimer's, for Mom being an escape artist. And I did, we did not feel comfortable. And then we decided, and we had many talks with them, because she was on the wait list, but when her time would come, Dad wasn't ready. And probably Mom wasn't either, but we wanted to get her on.
Did she know she was going?
No, by that time she'd know.
I didn't.
No. So I think we passed up 3 times on the wait list. So that's how long we had been in preparation for it, because we knew one day it was going to happen. And then one day Dad was just ready. And that's what we had to wait for, was Dad to be ready, because Mom was ready months before that. I mean,
her need was there months before that. And a lot of times families do wait for the emergency. They wait until they absolutely cannot wait any longer, and with hopes that there isn't something that is detrimental that happens in the meantime. And and that's understandable, because nobody wants to get to that point.
Right. She got out one night when it was snowing, kind of got lost. And I think that scared Dad, and he didn't know she was gone, because he had fallen asleep in the chair. And
exhausted, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I think that and her not being able to hold her urine anymore, and it was a lot, it was a lot. And she wouldn't take baths. My sister and I would have to go and give her a sponge bath, and the whole time she's crying and yelling at us, but like a little kid, like, like we were hurting her.
Well, because, if you imagine, like, let's say you think you're 20 years old and somebody comes up and tries to start giving you a bath. It's violating. It really is.
Yes.
And, and sometimes even if they go back even further, they don't even understand the situation, because, they might not have even had indoor plumbing or had showers. So, where we think having a shower every day or soaking in a tub, that might not be something that they're even familiar with.
Exactly.
If they think they're 10 years old.
And that's the truth, because Mom was raised without, bathtubs and showers. And we couldn't talk her into getting in the bathtub.
Yeah.
We had to actually, like, put her on the toilet and have her sit there, and we would wash the top half rinse it, and get her dressed. And they had these infrared light bulbs in their bathroom for heat, and she would freeze, so we would put them on, and my sister Pam and I would just be drenched with sweat. And we, but we had to do it. And then she would tell us
You'd
that.
be shocked how many heaters are on when it's 90 degrees outside in the senior care community. Yeah.
Yes. Dad was one of them that
Yeah.
did that. But then she would say that we was hurting her with the wash rag, and we would try to find the softest wash rags we could. And she fought us all the way, but she needed cleaned. And we had 2 outfits that we could choose from because that's all she would wear. So as we are taking her clothes off, we're throwing those in the washer, putting a new clean pair on her. It was just really stressing. Dad decided it was time, and we made a plan, and we wanted somebody up there at all times with Mom at first. At least for an hour during the day. Well, Dad would go up there and stay all day because that was his love. I mean, he would be up there all day long. He would eat up there. They would feed him. The nurses were wonderful. The only thing they were not doing is giving Dad his medicine, to be honest. And he would.
At this point, they'd been married 60 years or so.
60. Yeah. Mom walked and walked and walked the floors up there, and she would just cry and cry. I want to go home. I want to go home. And it was heartbreaking. And I would always when she would do it, when I was there, I'd always start singing hymns to her, and she would sing along with me. Because music, she remembered music.
It's a great therapy. And a lot of times you mentioned about wanting to go home, but a lot of times they want to go home to a home that doesn't exist. It might be, I want to go home to where they were when they were 5 or 10. And so a lot of times families are thinking, oh, she wants to go home to where she came from. Like she was just there, but really she wants to go home somewhere that we can't even, take them.
Right.
And so, cause it depends on, where they are with their dementia. So even what that means. So,
and one day I was at work before Mom went into the nursing home, and this was getting really far into it. It was like at the point, it was probably a couple months before she went in. Dad called me, and I hear Mom just crying and screaming in the background. And he's like, can you come home and help me? I said, what happened? And he said, she wanted to go see her mom. And I told her mom was dead. I'm like, Dad, why did you do that? So I get there, and she comes to me like a little 5-year-old girl, her arms open wide. And she said, that man told me my mom is dead. And I said, I'm sorry, Mom, because I couldn't fix that problem.
couldn't fix what had already happened. Yeah.
And I said, do you want to go see your sister? And she's like, yes. So I called my Aunt Lois, and I told Lois what happened. And we went to Lois's house, and Lois got out all these old albums, photo albums. And Mom and her had a good time looking through those albums. And that was a good thing. That I don't know why I thought about it, but I knew she needed the past.
Yeah, that was healing. And that is one of the only ways that we can, you mentioned hymns and pictures, and that's one of the only ways that we can connect with them to figure out, what is going through their mind right now. A lot of times when you lay out those pictures like that, if they don't recognize their adult children, they might recognize their young children, and they might not, or they might recognize their siblings or their parents. So laying out those pictures like that can kind of help the family be able to connect with them. Because a lot of, we'll see times where the families, are like, hey, remember this happened, or look at this picture of my children. And they're like, wait a minute, my daughter's only 15 years old. There's no way she has grown children. So we're creating that confusion, which is where you get into the agitation and frustration that comes from them themselves.
Mom could remember so much in her past and true stories in her past that really happened, but couldn't remember what she told you 5 minutes ago.
Right. Short term. That's the difference between short term and long term memory. So
after that, when I took her home, I'm like, Dad, why did you tell her that? And he's like, I've never lied to your mom and I'm not going to start. I said, but all those classes that you've taken, they tell you just to divert the question, like, we'll go see her later, or, we'll talk to her later. She's busy right now, or, okay, we can go there, but it's going to be after I do this. I said, so you're not really lying. You're telling little white lies to help her. You're protecting her mind.
Right.
And I said, God will forgive you for that, know?
How honorable of that is.
He loved
After
her.
all those years of marriage.
He said he never lied to her and he wasn't going to start.
Yeah. That he was like, nope, I'm not gonna start now. Yes, that's awesome.
But even with Mom, she would have times that she would forget who Dad was, but most of the time she knew Dad was the love of her life. Most of the time she would be all over Dad, like holding his arm or holding his hand,
I remember that.
stroking his hair, or,
Yeah,
always.
I remember that. She definitely connected with him, even if she didn't recognize who he was. Like you mentioned, her saying that man, but even if she didn't connect who he was, she knew that was love.
Yes,
and
she
your
knew
dad
was
carried himself with love. Like he, you could tell he had a soft soul.
He did. Actually, growing up, Dad was more affectionate to his kids than Mom was. Mom was raised with hardly no affection, and I don't think Dad was either. But, Dad would be the one that would tell us that he loved us and hug us, and Mom didn't start doing that until after I got married.
So you mentioned that your mom didn't have much affection growing up.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm curious sometimes if I think that's why sometimes when they do revert back to that time period, if that's why they end up more anxious or and have more emotions and get agitated at times, is because of maybe things that happen that we don't know about.
She loved my grandma. I mean, my grandma was a wonderful person, but I think back when Mom was born, they just didn't do that,
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, like, I was 12 when my first nephew was born. When you would see Mom with babies, it was a whole different ball game than Mom with teenage kids.
Oh, well, hello. That's for everyone, isn't it?
I mean, Mom was such a good grandma. I mean, and she helped, and, and Mom loved babies, and probably that's why she had 7, because she loved babies.
Yes. Yes. She obviously did. Which that was more normal. Now it's, everybody has 1 or 2 or none, or have a dog or cat.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's true. We had no pets. We just had kids.
Yes.
But Mom was very busy even at the nursing home. Like, she had escaped a couple times, and they had to keep an eye on her because she was an escape artist.
Yes. I do remember. I do remember that. She was a busy woman.
Yes. And they put a sensor on her arm to where she got close to the door, it would go off. Well, she figured out how to get her finger in there and get it off. Then they put one on her ankle. Same thing. I don't know how long she worked on that. It had to be a long time.
Yeah, because those bands didn't stretch.
No,
didn't stretch.
But she figured out a way to make them stretch and got her finger in there and got it off her foot. And that time they found her in the parking lot. And then another time, an employee left the door cracked, and it was a side door, and there was like a little hill going up, and she got there and couldn't figure out how to get up the hill, and they found her. But when we would walk, every time we'd walk by that door, she goes, "Can't go out that door. It goes up a huge mountain. You doesn't go anywhere."
Isn't that funny now that she could remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be just that quick. Every time we walk past, "Can't go out that door. Goes up a huge mountain." I mean, her mind just it never shut off, never shut off until it did, Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that she had done a lot of Sudokus and
She did. She did
crosswords
crossword puzzles.
Yeah.
She read the newspaper from front to back.
So she exercised her brain a lot when she was young.
Yes. She loved card games. We played card games or Yahtzee all the time. And it was weird that one day I just realized that they're getting all these papers and they're not even open because Mom just quit reading one day. Yeah. And that was during her, it was in the latter or the late mid of her disease. And then like she could talk but it got to the point to where in the nursing home, she would only answer yes or no, or I don't know, or maybe, or,
uncertain, trying to find her answers.
Yes. And she got sick at the nursing home. She got pneumonia, which no big deal. I mean, everybody gets sick.
Happens.
But anytime Mom would get a cold, all my life, it would turn into pneumonia, bronchitis or pneumonia. Well, she went to the hospital and she was called a fall risk. So they didn't let her out of the bed. And after that, after she came home, she was there for 5 days. She couldn't remember how to walk. And
yeah,
that was
no disrespect against the hospitals, but when you have someone with memory care, it takes a lot of knowing that person and knowing their family and knowing their history and knowing how to de-escalate any situations. So a lot of times when you put them in the hospital and they're away from the people that know them and they're in different surroundings and everything, that it is rather challenging.
It is. She wasn't a fall risk, but she was
an escape artist.
Light risk.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I would agree.
So they had to do that to know when she was getting out of bed.
Right.
But then it was damaging because they wouldn't even let her walk. They wouldn't let us. I guess they didn't want the responsibility of it because I would try to walk her when I'd be there and they wouldn't let me. But I didn't know that she would forget how to walk. That was something that was, all of this was new to me. I mean, I never was around anybody like this that I was that close to, and then it was a couple, maybe her vocabulary was already slowing down, but Mom lived 3 years without walking or talking. And that was sad. But when she would look at me when I would visit her, even though she might not know I was her favorite daughter.
Oh boy.
Even though.
But I do hear that that Danny is the good days.
I've heard that Danny's the good days.
So thank you. Thank you, Danny.
Danny and Jennifer, his wife, they picked up a lot of slack, like especially when I was going through a lot of stuff with my husband, and they figured out insurance stuff and they figured out nursing home payments, and I was taking care of Mom and Dad's finances. And then when my husband got sick, I really couldn't do it any longer. It was all I could do to take care of my own finances. And so Jennifer stepped in and Danny stepped in, and they really picked up the slack a lot. Danny would go to the nursing home once a week and play music for him. And they would take him to the doctors, and I would take off work and take him. But Danny was retired by then, and Danny really helped. He was.
That's no surprise. No surprise.
Yeah.
You're both pretty good. I think.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. I like to be right a good days once.
Yes. I'll give it to you this time.
But anyway, Dad's house was way too big, and we decided that Dad was going to sell his house. We put Dad in a little condo. Well, his house had carpet, and this is another thing you don't think about. And this condo was hardwood, and Dad started falling. Mm-hmm. And one day he laid there for a couple hours before my youngest brother, Marty, came and checked on him. And I think it scared him. Thank God Dad was short because he never got hurt when he fell.
He didn't have far to
He
go.
didn't have far to fall. But, and he was so used to crawling around on his knees all his life from carpeting. And so anyway, so he decided he was going to go to the nursing home, and it just upset me so bad because I wanted Dad to live with me. I wanted to take care of my dad. And I tried to talk him into it, and he just wouldn't do it. And he's like, no, I'm going to go live with Mom. Mm-hmm. And the nursing home made arrangements, and they moved Mom into a bigger room and put Dad in there. And so they spent, until Mom passed away, they spent their time in the room together, and Dad took care of her just the same.
As long as he could,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Yes.
that's no surprise. I
Mm-hmm.
remember him visiting every day.
Yep.
We talked about how we'd always be like, well, we better park somewhere else because we know he's going to be coming in hot.
He comes in hot.
And that minivan.
And that van had lots of dings to show. He parked crooked. When I go there after work, I'm like, yep.
Yep, that's him, and it's all good, but we remember.
Yeah,
I clearly remember the vehicle, so I knew to avoid it. But we had great times visiting with him, and so one of the things about yourself and your dad and your family is you really accepted and became part of the family at the nursing community that you were at. And tell me how that was so successful for you.
We had open communication. Like when Mom first got there, they wouldn't give her a bath. Me and my sister was still going up twice a week and bathing my mother. Mm-hmm. And one day I looked at my sister. She's saying my back is killing me. And I'm like, and I'm trying to make it in my schedule to do it, So we had to have a meeting with them. And we said to them, you don't have to wash her hair twice a week, but she needs a bath twice a week. And you could even wash her hair once every 2 weeks. We don't care, but she needs a bath twice a week at least. And she will fight. And they're like, but we can't if she says no. I said, but we want you to. We can't keep coming up here and doing this. And they understood. And after that, it was a fight for them, but they would give Mom a bath every 2 weeks. She fought them. She was a spunky thing, but then they had somebody come in and do hair. So we would pay for Mom to have her hair done. And so they would wash her hair real good and fix it. Her hair always looked nice.
Yeah, just like yours.
Thank you.
I think you said that just because you have your mom's exact hair.
I do. Thanks, Mom. And the double chin. Thanks.
Oh, well, it's a great thing to be like Tiny.
I know. Yeah. I didn't like it for many years, but you have to accept it after so long.
So, being that she had elopement risk and she had some, challenges with bathing and stuff, you mentioned a care plan meeting.
Yes.
And so, to me, those are just so key to families and the staff working together so they can figure out, how are we going to take care of her? Because in our minds, you're right. She has the right to refuse that shower. And so then we have to figure out, are we going to sponge bathe her? How are we going to do this in the least traumatic way for her? Mm-hmm. With also the rule is, that she's clean and dry and, that she doesn't have any hygiene issues.
Right.
So But you went in and you talked to them, and of course, you mentioned finding her in the parking lot, and so you guys had to work together a lot as a team there.
We did. When she first went there, we did. And actually, all of my siblings credit the keypad on the door to get in and to get out or in is because of Mom, because she kept escaping, and one day there was a keypad there. I'm
Yes.
sure it had nothing to do with Tiny.
Oh, don't be surprised.
But we named that thing Tiny because
Tiny, yes.
after they did the keypad, she couldn't get out any longer.
Yeah.
And it's just like technology. Maybe that technology wasn't even part of it when she, when
Right.
2 months before.
As you mentioned, the hospital, and it makes me think back of my early years of nursing. We restrained everybody, and that wasn't a good thing either. But that was what the standard of practice was: is you restrained people so that they'd quit standing up, and they quit trying to go out the door, and they quit trying to do all these things. And and then we realized, well, then, like your example of the hospital, well, then they forget how to walk. Well, we don't want to, you don't want to be making anyone forget how to walk. You want people to be able to exercise and do that, because burning that energy of walking was really good for her. And we don't want to do that to people. So then we have to figure out better ways. So that's where the technology comes in. And I'm an advocate on what further technology are we going to use in order to make senior care be even better in the future.
Well, with Mom forgetting to walk, it is almost like it was just downhill. I know she lived for 3 more years, but she didn't have the quality. I mean, she really didn't. I mean, it really, like right after she quit walking, she quit talking. She would just sit in a wheelchair and just stare at you or stare at the ceiling, or it was like, it really did affect her. And I'm not blaming the hospital. I understand. And it might have happened anyway. You don't know.
Right.
But it was just sad to see your mom go like that. That was so vibrant in the family and held the family together and made great decisions and was loving, and to see her just sit and stare.
It is sad.
It is sad.
As you know, I've had that same personal experience, and that's why I've become a nurse, all because of those examples that you're giving, because it is very challenging for the family. And as you start dealing with the different aspects of it, and even have to look into placement, there's guilt that the family deals with in order to think, why can't I take care of this person, or why can't I, why does this have to happen? Could I do better? And at the end of the day, we do the very best that we can. And in your case, you guys gave all. Above and beyond of the care that you provided, you had to make the very hard decision to put her in the safest place. And then you guys become huge partners with the community itself in order to, make sure that, hey, whatever they needed in order to care for her better was done. And you guys worked together very, very well in order to make sure that she did have the best of what she could have, even though the disease had taken its toll.
Well, when Mom first went in, I probably was there 4 times a week. And then my other siblings would go, a lot, or maybe even more. I don't know. And then once she got used to it, then, I would still go down there because Dad was down there.
Right.
And a lot of times, even though Dad wasn't in the nursing home, he would be down there, and I'd have to make sure, Dad, do you need this done? Do you need that done? Or if I wanted to visit Dad, I had to visit him at the nursing home. But you learn, like, you just start talking to the other residents. So as the person that I am, I would try to help the other residents. Not only did I try to help Mom, but I was helping the other residents also, and you learn them, and you start caring for them. And when you find out that maybe they passed away, it don't, kind of hurts your heart a little bit, because you built a bond and I don't know about a friendship, but
well, sure, it is a friendship, and
it's a different
they're
kind
always
of
looking for
friendship.
volunteers, because there's a lot of people that don't have 6 kids.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't have the visitors that
and I saw that,
and they need that. And a lot of times, you can have cases where people thrive because they didn't have any visitors at home, and then they go to the senior community, and then in the senior community they have all these people that there is to talk to and interact with, and go to different activities and music coming in, and church service coming in, and all these things that are happening there. And so then they thrive a little bit. And that's not always the case, because some people are there, that are suffering from memory care issues or whatever. But there are times that interaction that you had with other people really makes a difference for the people that are there, that are not as far advanced as your mom was.
But that was how it was with Dad when he would go visit Mom.
He visit with everyone.
That was his social life,
right? For him to make that decision to move in himself tells you that he enjoyed that social life,
and tells you that they took good care of Mom. Because if they didn't, Dad would be the one that would have pulled her out.
Yeah,
because he adored her, and he wanted,
and it showed every day, every time. They were the cutest thing, sitting there holding hands.
Yeah,
they are the cutest things.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you have for other family members? We all know it's not easy. We all know that there's no way to make it easy.
You have to find the fun and stuff. I mean, you do. I mean, there's stories that we still to this day will laugh about, something Mom did or something Dad did. And Mom's, it's almost kind of cruel because she had Alzheimer's, but it was funny. So you do have to find joy. Another thing is you have to be open with your other siblings, or, most people have siblings. And if not, whoever you're going to reach out to help you. You cannot do it alone. You have to have a plan. You don't need just one plan. You need several plans, because plan A never works. Plan B usually works, but you need to have a plan C also. And you have to have affairs in order, which we did not. I would suggest people, when you see the decline, at least get a power of attorney for medical. Yes, they will argue with you, but you need to somehow convince them it's only for the best for them, because Mom was Dad's power of attorney and Dad was Mom's. How did that even make sense? But
well, it makes total sense as a couple when they're handling it. But if you're both dealing with something at the same time, that throws that all out the window.
Yes. So to remove Dad, because at that point, once Dad started declining, like, it did not make sense that he should be Mom's power of attorney. Well, with Mom having Alzheimer's and not talking, and we had to make it to where she was incapacitated. We had to take her to court, and that's terrible to say, but that was the step. Don't let that happen, people. Do it before that happens, right? Because you think putting your mom in a nursing home gives you guilt. That gives you guilt. I felt terrible for having to do that, but we had to do it. And we made, my brother and I, to be able to make Mom's decisions. And then Dad was able to sign his own, to where Danny and I could be the power of attorneys. And with Dad, then we did it on both of them. We did financial, and medical. And you do have to have both. You have to have financial, you have to have medical. But at least do the medical part to where somebody that cares for that person and loves that person, but is a step away than a spouse can make wise decisions. And we didn't make decisions really without most of the family input. Like Danny and I never made decisions without talking to our siblings and talking to Dad, you know.
Yeah, that communication is key because a lot of times what I've seen is that, there's this one family member that's surprised that something's happening. What do you mean? Mom's confused, or what do you mean this? And they can deny it, especially when you have a spouse like your dad, where he was covering for some of it. And that open communication between everyone is extremely important.
Yes. When she was home before she went into the nursing home, if somebody didn't see her once a week, or like if I would see her once a week, or my sister would see her once a week, and my brother would see her, and a couple of my brothers would see her once a week. There's 5 people seeing her once a week. And we talked and we discussed and we kept Dad in the loop. And Dad was the hardest one actually to convince stuff because he had a love and he thought we were picking on her, and we weren't. And we would try
He
to
was her
explain.
protector.
Yes, we would try to explain, Dad, we're not picking on her. We want the best for her.
Right.
And that was before we had the power of attorney. But honestly, looking back, we should have had the power of attorney over her before it ever got to the nursing home.
Yeah. It is something that you don't want to have to make those decisions when you're emotional. And once it gets to that point where you're having to look at placement, or you're having a decline, emotions are high. So, communication is a lot more difficult when, you're emotional. So prevention of um, that chaos that happens at that exact moment. You mentioned earlier about your husband and your mom and all that at the same time. This not the best times to have it be make big decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to rely on other siblings to keep me informed because I was fighting my own battle, and then going through the grieving process, and then Mom taking a pretty significant turn to the worse. So I wasn't just grieving my husband, I'm grieving my mom.
You
And
are grieving someone with Alzheimer's. You are grieving them long before they pass.
I remember one time talking to my sister after my husband passed away, and I said, I just need my mom, and my mom's not there, and she was physically there. She would see me, but she wasn't Mom. She wasn't my mom,
Right.
And at that point, I was in my late 40s, and I just felt like even then, I just wanted my mom, and I look back now and I realize I was grieving my mom not
the
being
same
my
time.
mom. So when my mom passed away, I had already grieved her. I had already let my mom go mentally, and
I know it's hard to say out loud, but I
It is.
100% understand what you're saying is when that person's not there anymore, it's, it is,
Mhm.
it is, you do grieve them as you lose them
Yes.
slowly over time. And then, and unfortunately that is how it can be viewed. Yeah.
Yeah. And people probably think it sounds cruel. I don't think I cried when Mom died. Um, I was up there, we brought as many people as we could to come in and huddle around her and, give her love and watch her go. But I cried because I was sad for Dad. But Mom, I'd already grieved.
Yeah. And because, I also know your family is one of faith, and she's at a better place and she
Yes.
was without suffering and,
Mhm.
she had suffered long enough.
And I will tell you, when mom got to the final stages, there was a grimace on my mom's face, like, she would just sleep or stare in the ceiling, and it didn't even look like my mom. The moment she passed, a peace just came over her, and she looked like my mom.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was like I don't know, it was like all the tension and all the like, she would have her hands so tight, and all that tension just escaped her when she passed, and it was like a peace just came over her, and it did,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You were able to witness that because that was probably part of your grieving process of being able to know that she was at peace.
Yes.
So I think that everyone learns from every situation. What do you feel like? How did that change you as a person?
We all feel like at parts in our life that mom was so rough on us, or mom was, or why did mom say that to me or do that to me, or why is this sibling was mom's favorite? And,
we know which one that was.
Yes, we do. And so he's the good one. But the funny thing about that is mom, until she could not talk anymore, remembered Marty, the youngest, and Danny, the oldest. Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is weird.
Mm-hmm. And
So we really know who her favorites
yes,
were.
yeah. But
but you were your dad's favorite.
I was.
Yes.
I was. And well, let me go back to your question. I think that you have to realize that mom did the best she could for what she had, and just it's not worth holding on to. And I wasn't ever one to really hold on to stuff, but then it taught me that mom would take care of us, and even as adults and married, she would chip in and help anytime we needed her to. And I don't mean like just for watching children. I meant like she would be there to help you if you got like behind on your housework, or she would help you come and do stuff at your house if you needed her to. And she was very supportive. And then it got to a point to where all of a sudden I'm in the mom situation. I'm correcting my mom. I'm guiding my mom to this and that.
You had one instance where you thought she was going to bite you, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was putting the seatbelt on her in my car, and I had a short sleeve shirt on, and I felt her
right in that tender spot
on my arm. And I had to look at her very sternly, and I'm like, you better not bite me. And I was afraid to move, afraid she'd grab me with her teeth and bite me. So I kept my arm there, and I'm like, I am not kidding. You better not bite me. And her eyes twinkled, she smiled, and she released. And she's
just testing you.
Oh my. It was like a little kid.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because my granddaughter did that to me just the other day. She'd just puts her teeth on you just enough to know I could bite you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then she just haha, never mind. I'm not going to.
And if you would have jerked, she would have clamped
right.
me.
But what an awesome answer you gave to that question. I just want to go back to that because that you learned about your mom and her journey. When you told me that your mom was a career woman, that's something I didn't. I knew that they had a carpet store, and I knew that she wore the pants in the family.
Yes,
but I didn't know that she was the breadwinner and that you guys had moved around in order to accommodate her career for a little while. And then I do think of losing a child. I think if I lost a child even at 4 days old, I think it would crush me.
Mhm.
And so to have to live through that and then still go on to raise 6 wonderful children
Mhm.
and then live that long year and how many years being a devoted wife
Mm.
to your
Yes.
dad
Yes.
and having that remarkable relationship that they did. That's impressive. That makes her a really, really strong, wonderful woman. And that journey kind of led you here. That's impressive.
Yes. And, when dad went into the nursing home, then we was like, well, before dad went into the nursing home, even, we were taking care of him then. So we went straight from focusing on mom to focusing on dad. And so I just say that if I had to give advice, if you're holding on to things with your siblings or with your parents, just try to figure out a resolution because everybody needs to be together as a family, and we really never thought about it. Maybe I didn't agree with some things and they didn't agree with me, and that's fine. That's life. But mom and dad, even when we downsized dad, we had a yard sale and stuff, nothing to me was worth fighting over.
Mhm.
The most important thing to me, and I will say to my siblings also, not just me, it was our whole family, nothing was worth fighting over. That was just stuff. We wanted mom and dad, is what we wanted. We wanted the best for them.
So the love and the
Mhm.
joy of family is your lesson.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could see that because you are a remarkable grandmother
Thank you.
and you're very family oriented yourself, and you obviously learned that from Dace
Mhm.
and Tiny.
Yeah, this picture is when they renewed their vows.
That's
Yeah.
Do you know how long they'd been married when they did that?
It was 45 years when they did
45
that.
years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know why they did it on 45, but they did. Well, mom had an idea and it was going to happen.
No doubt in my mind when Tiny was on her mission that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
That's the way mom was. If mom had an idea, it was going to happen and dad was going to back her.
yeah, all right. Well, Kim, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me today and sharing your story. I know it's not always easy, and sometimes it makes you have to relive some really hard times in your
Mhm.
life. But, if we can just help one other person
Yes.
that's going through the journey and to find joy in the journey
Yeah.
and, to make the best of the situations that we've been and to find, in the end, find love in your family. So
Yep.
thank you and have a great day.